Hello, everyone. I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. I'm excited to bring you another entry in our EHR telehealth series. And today we've got Cerner. And together with us today is Andy Penn. He's vice president of virtual health at Cerner. Welcome, Andy.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me today, and it's great to be on.
Yeah, so this has been a fun series, learning about how different EHR vendors are approaching telehealth. But before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and Cerner.
Sure. So Cerner's a global healthcare company, from technology, services, a variety of different offerings we take to our client base. And I've just crossed my 18th year here at Cerner in a variety of roles, but am currently responsible for our virtual health solution offerings.
Excellent. Well, looking forward to your perspectives. And it sounds like you've been there a while. So this next question will fit right in for you, which is, what was Cerner's view on telehealth pre-COVID-19? How were you approaching it? What were you seeing adoption-wise? And how did COVID-19 really change that approach?
Certainly. Well, in some form or fashion, for the better part of a decade, Cerner's been working within elements of virtual health. So whether that be EICU type applications or messaging and video visit to some degree. But, really pre-COVID, it was all investment and I think our clients as well as Cerner waiting for the floodgates to open and for the adoption of telehealth to occur. Now, we never thought that would occur as a result of a worldwide pandemic. Unfortunate that was the precursor, but I think we were fortunate to have had some experience, have already invested in certain solutions and offerings leading into COVID, which allowed us to be better prepared to serve our clients as that hit. And I think a big part of that is we do operate our own health clinics, and so have incorporated a lot of those types of technologies in serving the health needs of our associates, and it was part of what built into that. But certainly post COVID, we've experienced along with our clients what you've seen, probably from most in the industry, 800,000% increase in utilization across a variety of different areas. Just massive shift as physical visits were switched to virtual, literally overnight. And a lot of our experience shows we accelerated what we were trending and projecting, in the industry, probably 3 to 5 years in a matter of 2 weeks, really, as we looked in the middle and latter part of March.
That's crazy. 800,000%. Does that even fit on the calculator?
You run the numbers a couple times to be like, I've never put percentages in that.
Yeah, it's like, did I add too many zeros when I entered that number? Because it feels off. Yeah, it's crazy. It sounds like you guys were positioned. You've been working on this for a while, but I assume you accelerated some of the development of those features, and even for yourself, it sounds like, for your own clinics.
Certainly. And, I won't pretend to say that we were ready for that type of volume. We responded quickly, as our clients, did as well, and to go address the shift. But, as it pertains to our technologies, either those that we develop or through our, partnerships, we were pretty well positioned. There were certainly some times when the systems were stressed, but I think response was very quick and rapid in how we were able to go scale and help support as the volumes increased to those really unprecedented volumes.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some great case studies coming out of all this about scaling technology, especially video technology. But, I think it's interesting. Cerner's, I think, biggest foray into telehealth is obviously a pretty landmark partnership between you and telehealth, or you and Amwell, sorry. And that partnership between Cerner and Amwell has been publicized quite a bit for quite a while that you've been working on it. So talk about, what are you doing there, and, what is Amwell doing and what is Cerner doing in-house?
Certainly. And so, I had mentioned Cerners had a variety of different solution offerings, some more acute focused around surveillance within the facility, remote patient monitoring and connected devices. Amwell
And are
really
those through partners as well, or are they built with Cerner, or how are you approaching
um,
those areas?
so our inpatient, our acute focus has really been self-developed. Components of remote patient monitoring are we're not manufacturing devices as an example.
Sure, of course.
And some of the last mile connectivity, but certainly are processing that information, providing insights, and more of the analytics as a result. Those types of
Gotcha.
programs. And then really, we had dabbled in elements of video visit or virtual visits, and quickly realized, and this was a number of years ago, that hey, we really think the market's moving quickly. Our client needs are evolving very quickly to include, provider consults, to include on-demand urgent care, which total separate set of requirements, and that really is what initiated our relationship with Amwell and the breadth of capabilities they bring to the table. That was a great partnership. And I think the overall approach of having, a strong technology foundation, that was well aligned with our direction as well, to create really telehealth experiences that are embedded in the EMR, they're embedded in the patient experience, whether they be a patient or a prospective patient, and leveraging those solutions from Cerner.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. How deeply integrated is Amwell with the Cerner EHR, and maybe what integrations are you still working on, and probably got accelerated over the last 6 months, huh?
Yeah, no, certainly. And, we had always looked at our opportunity as being both streamlining the experience for either the provider and care team or for the patient. And so, we really started with kind of looking at it through two lenses, one being the visual integration. So, not interrupting workflow, not having swivel chair type experiences, but be able to have kind of seamless process and seamless workflow for users. And so we started with joint development around leveraging each other's software development kits and API capabilities, and a variety of other methods to visually integrate, as we also then integrated the data as well, so that we can contextually, integrate and know who the provider is, who the patient is, and not provide multiple logins, and have data sets available that are helpful to go streamline that workflow. And so, we started with urgent care on demand because
Okay.
that was an area where we really didn't have a capability from a Cerner perspective, and Amwell was very strong. And we've continually progressed that into workflows around scheduled visits for both primary as well as specialty care, and then provider consults, and even more specific, like telestroke and other programs like that, where Amwell had certain capabilities, both technology and content, to go drive those workflows that really melded well with the workflows within Cerner.
And so it sounds like you've essentially integrated it from a physician perspective, that it all happens within the EHR. They don't even know they're using Amwell, I imagine. That the workflow is just so integrated that it's a seamless experience. They don't have to have they talk about two-screen experience for a lot of people, or they may have two screens. They may have the video here and the EHR documentation there, but it's all within the same application from their perspective. Is that right?
Certainly, and we've taken the same approach for the patient as well. For patients who are using and accessing services through the patient portal, are able to have that seamless experience within the portal as well. So being able to see an upcoming video visit appointment as an example, and launch that directly from the patient portal.
Yeah. Well, we're going to dive into the Amwell and Cerner integration and all that, I think, in our lightning round. But before we get there, how about other third-party telehealth vendors? I mean, Cerner has so many customers, and no doubt some customers who are already using a different telehealth solution, or maybe they just preferred a different one to Amwell, or what could come built in with Cerner. How do you approach that type of integration with these third-party telehealth vendors that a customer may want to use?
Yep, certainly. And so we've got a variety of kind of capabilities and programs, and predominantly our code, our Cerner Open Developer Experience program, which is really services we provide along with APIs to go assist third parties in building applications connecting to Millennium for those types of contextual launch within the application, data integrations. And so, first and foremost, that's probably our most scalable approach that we see other telehealth technology companies and otherwise taking advantage of in support of our clients. Additionally, we have a lot of clients who are very well versed in different technologies and are doing some of this work themselves as well. So
Okay.
if they're able to do so, and so those are probably the two predominant models that we take, with our developer program being the most probably widely available and scalable.
Yeah, I think my next EHR series is going to be about APIs. What's possible, what's not, what's missing, what's needed. Because I think this is the future, whether it's telehealth or a lot of other areas as well. So uh,
Certainly.
that may be the next series. But let's dive into our we call it our lightning round. So we'll go through a whole set of features, and you can kind of give us a yes, no, or Amwell does that, we do it, et cetera, whatever is appropriate to that feature. We'll start off with what I call every EHR vendor features, and it would be shocking if you say no. So we'll just go through them, and you can shake your head or or say yep, of course. I think they'll be pretty quick. HIPAA compliant. Almost embarrassing to
Of
ask
course, yes.
that, right? Audit logs, another example, right? I imagine it's similar audit logs to the rest of the EHR.
Yes.
Um, how about automated patient reminders? Is it similar to other visits within Cerner, or do you have other specific capabilities?
Right. No, we certainly leveraged our enterprise capabilities around appointment reminders. And so as appointments are scheduled in Cerner, if that's a video visit type appointment, it follows the same pathway with those functions that we provide and capabilities we provide.
Right. Just has a link to join rather than directions, maybe. Uh, that makes sense. Patient education, do you have anything specific to telehealth, or is it kind of just the built-in patient education for any visit?
It's our standard patient education. There, with Amwell, there's obviously opportunities for waiting room type content that can be provided,
Gotcha.
and some upfront education pre-diagnoses or otherwise. But post-visit, we follow the same patient education, content that we send as part of a summary and make that available to the patient.
Gotcha. And we'll dive into the waiting room. I want to learn more about that. But one last one that I think every EHR vendor, patient payment, does it go back to the EHR to just manage that whole patient payment?
Yep, certainly. And so we can certainly do that within Amwell, but we also have a capability within our framework, our consumer framework or patient application to be able to do so as
Gotcha.
well.
Yeah, and fair enough. It's probably the PM, not the HR, but I kind of consider them one these days. Cool. So let's dive into the other ones that are maybe a little more unique. How about custom branding? How are you approaching that? What do you offer in that regard?
Sure. So if we're leveraging our consumer framework or our patient application, we allow that to be branded, specific with logos and color schemes and layout for our health systems and clients. And so that's built in, available for those that choose to do so. And similarly, in our offering with Amwell has a lot of flexibility around branding, the application that delivers the capabilities and service directly to the patient, and that can be branded with the health system name or whatever entity is leveraging the system.
Great. How about telehealth appointment scheduling? Anything specific to that, or do they use the regular scheduling system, or is there a separate one? How are you doing that?
Yep, and that's a big part of our integration with Amwell is leveraging enterprise scheduling. And so whether that's call in to the clinic or that's self-scheduling through the patient application, that's all consistent with in-person or virtual visit.
Got you. So you already hit the self-scheduling. You have that feature. I assume it's for telehealth, any visits. Is it through the portal, or is it separate, or how are you approaching that?
It is through the portal, so that's our primary means, and it's client configurable, and so they'll make certain appointments, available for self-scheduling, for certain clinics or service types, and so that's very common in our setup.
Great. How about asynchronous text messaging with the patient?
So not today. So we do app-based secure messaging directly with the
Okay.
patient. Text and SMS is something that we're are rapidly developing, and for more of that, either asynchronous or continuous chat.
Nice. And that's the other one that it's kind of similar, but I think it's slightly different is the real-time text chat during the visit. And this is probably an Amwell question since they're facilitating the live video. Do they have the real-time chat? I like it even for tech troubleshooting, but also if they said something you didn't quite understand it, they type it in. It's like, oh, okay, I know what you meant.
Right, and you're right. That is a feature of our offering with Amwell, and you nailed the common use cases as well. If there's technical issues or challenges with understanding content or what was said, very quick way to organize around that.
Yeah, you can easily see them sharing education links, other things like that too, right? So I think it's great, and of course Amwell has that built in. That's great. How about web-based or app-based? And I think there's kind of two perspectives here from the clinician side and the patient side. How are you approaching that? Is it web? Is it app?
We are predominantly web-based, and so when accessing through the EMR, that's a launch out to the local device, and really the goal being not requiring footprints and software installations, on endpoints, and which provides a lot of flexibility and quick access, which is a big part of what we aim to go offer our clients.
Yeah, I think web-based seems to be winning, but we'll see. If people want to download an app, there's a few cases I think it makes sense, but
there's some certain technical advantages at times to having a local client. Certainly, the flexibility and kind of ongoing maintenance have kind of won so far as choice and direction.
And as far as the patient experience, is it a send a single link, they can load the telehealth visit, or do they have to log into the portal? How are you approaching kind of that patient authentication connection?
We now offer both modalities, and so I think that's one thing coming out of COVID that we learned very quickly was, pre-COVID, the predominant viewpoint was, hey, let's drive people to our application. There's other things they can do in there. There's pre-visit information they can fill out, and that worked well, and it still works well in a lot of use cases. But certainly was post-COVID with the volumes was how do we make it frictionless for people to access? And so with Amwell, we've recently made available a SMS or email-based link that that can be sent out at the time of the visit and accessed directly from the patient's mobile device or desktop.
Yeah, I think frictionless is the right word that we all learned at scale. You have to do that. You don't want to deal with patient portal resetting of passwords, although you do miss those meaningful use stats. So some may regret that. I think they'll be all right.
I'm optimistic we'll find a meaningful way to be able to demonstrate and show that those interactions are taking place in a way that meets the intent of some of those measures.
Yeah, I think people will be fine with it. How about the patient intake paperwork? The forms. How do you approach that?
Certainly. So there's capability that's native to Amwell for intake that we take advantage of, but we also within our patient application have the ability to take intake forms and discrete data in that format that's attached to the appointment and make that available. So depending on the use case, depending on kind of the service that's being rendered for the person, we've got optionality there.
Does the Amwell form link back with the data back to Cerner, or is it just that type of visit doesn't need to be, or how does that work?
It's visible and available based on the visit type for the provider who's conducting the visit. So in Cerner, the physician or whatever role's conducting the visit's able to see all that intake information and leverage it as needed. as part of the visit.
Gotcha. And Cerner's big enough; they're integrated with all of the major forms one, whether it's Interlace Health or however it might be. If that's what they've already done, I assume they can still use those options for telehealth as well.
Certainly, and we've similar to an approach we've taken with Amwell, we've have some capabilities with Tonic as well, which is a well-known
Right.
forms
Okay.
and broader
Gotcha.
kind of registration intake.
Yeah, very similar.
Mhm.
Yep. Cool. And how about the virtual waiting room? You kind of already talked about it. It sounds like Amwell kind of controls that, or at least provides that service. Virtual waiting room, and kind of related, I think, is the patient workflow.
Mhm.
Can you facilitate the handoff from the MA to the doctor, or however that might be, or what features are available? Sounds like you had advertising in the waiting room, which I think is a really interesting, or education, not advertising, right?
Yep, certainly. And some of that can be educational of, hey, here's what's going to happen, here are the next steps. Some of it can be information about that particular facility. It's really kind of open as far as and flexible on how our predominant health system clients want to leverage that. But it's essentially once a visit has been entered by the patient, they're able to have a waiting room type of experience if they're waiting on the provider. And so from a patient standpoint, there's two modes of entry that we just talked about. One is direct link, which then takes to a waiting room and ultimately connects into the provider, and it's optional whether clients can configure intake information as part of that step,
Okay.
or they can enter from the patient portal and the patient application where they can see their upcoming appointment. They can view any what we call clipboard or intake forms that need to be completed, and contest their connections, that sort of thing, and then enter the visit. And so from a provider standpoint, anyone with access to that patient's record, MA or other attending or consulting physician, as an example, can enter that call. And there's some capabilities around messaging, so they can let each other know if it's as part of a multidisciplinary clinic, as an example, and they're rotating through different specialists and other members of the care team. That's all facilitated from kind of from the provider workflow.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It sounds like you guys are ahead of a lot of other organizations in this, and over the next 6 months to a year, I think we're going to see a lot more capabilities as far as what's needed for that waiting room and the workflow and what can be done there, right? You have the captive audience. How do you use that more effectively? The interesting space for sure. But it sounds like you're further along than most.
Certainly, and I think there's always technology type solutions. I think we've had the fortunate foresight to kind of combine and provide that context and clinical workflow context to some of the technology that's available to be able to provide those types of capabilities.
Yep. Cool. How about multilingual and remote interpretation? How are you dealing with those two things?
We do. So we have some system level capabilities to connect to different language services. So whether that's sign language or multilingual type services, to be able to pull multiple participants into a visit if that's required, because one of the participants may be speaking a different language as their primary language or language of choice. And so that's available from the provider's workflow to be able to. So whether that's an MA at the beginning of a visit, or provider once they're on with the patient are able to go pull that in.
And are those specific integrations with translation services, or a lot of people do it just we can do team-based sessions, and yeah, you can pull in whoever you want. It sounds like you have a deeper integration with a few different services.
Yep, there's a couple services that have more of a standard approach. So whether that's an email based or a call number or something like that can be configured to be able to access. And so the system's flexible enough to be able to accommodate a variety of those access points, and then is built into the workflow to be able to pull those individuals in. So whether that be email or phone or other means.
Great. And how about the team-based sessions? It sounds like that's an option to have multiple care providers, and increasingly we're seeing it includes caregivers or multiple the parents of the patient or whatever it might be. I assume you can support that.
Certainly. And so, multiple individuals can be scheduled for a time, from the care team,
Okay.
or they can be added ad hoc as well. And so similarly from the patient's perspective, they can extend their visit to family member, caregiver, whoever's appropriate from their end that may be assisting with their and authorized to assist with their health.
Great. How about integrated clinical documentation? How are you approaching kind of that integration with the documentation?
Sure. So, one of our primary workflows is that when embedded and integrated into the Cerner workflow, the documentation follows the core documentation of like it would almost in person. So using physician notes and whatever documentation tools are available. And instances where specific to Amwell as an example, if leveraging the Amwell Medical Group, those visit summaries can be sent to Cerner in the form of a CCD, CCDA, or other means,
Okay.
so that those are available as part of that patient's ongoing record going forward.
Yeah. Have you looked into ambient clinical voice for that? I mean, it's the hot topic of health IT. It is interesting having Amwell do it. It probably presents a different challenge than if it was just your own system. But what have you looked into that?
Well, certainly, and we have some solution offerings that are already leveraging some of those technologies. I think from the very beginning we looked at a natural fit for that would be in a virtual video visit. Both
Yeah.
endpoints. You know what
Yeah.
role each person is based on, and so can remove some of those complexities. So it's something that we're pretty much in research on and kind of developing out what that may look like.
Yeah. I can't wait till it's solved. How about screen image capture? If someone holds up their wound or some issue like that, how do you approach it?
Sure. So we've got the ability to upload images. And so whether that's an image that was taken previously or screen captured on the local device and uploaded, that's available in session and even pre-session too. So as part of that intake, if there's a photo of a rash or something of that sort, that can be uploaded and made available for the provider to view as part of that visit.
Okay. And how about screen share? Say, for example, the doctor wants to share their Cerner lab results over the last 6 months. Is that an option?
Certainly. So that's a core feature of Amwell's platform to be able to screen share. So whether that's certain type of image or report or trending graph of certain values like lab, that's all available.
Cool. And how about the post-visit patient rating, reviews? It's kind of two things. I think one is like internal review, surveys and things like that. The other is
Mhm.
kind of the more external, integrations with the health grades and, other, care dashes of the world. How are you
Certainly.
approaching those two?
So I mean, we have a very simple quick survey, thumbs up, thumbs down, 5-star type of response for both the provider and the
Okay.
patient to be able to gain insight as to how that you know quick NPS type of feedback for those experiences for
Gotcha.
both users.
Mhm. Cool. And how about telehealth specific billing and verification? I mean, obviously, if they go into Cerner, there's all the features of billing. Is there anything specific to telehealth that you've worked on?
So, just to confirm, yes, as much enterprise billing and those types of services we take advantage of as part of the core Cerner system. But certainly there's capability, again, with our partnership with Amwell around eligibility and kind of cash pay up front. So,
Okay.
be it credit card or health savings account. A variety of different modes for upfront collection and payment in models that support that.
Does Amwell have like a eligibility checker, or have they done that kind of stuff to try to estimate how much should the patient pay versus waiting?
Yes, certainly. So there's the ability to enter your insurance information and be able to check, for that plan, benefits that are covered for telehealth and estimate what that payment may be.
Excellent. Well, that's kind of the lightning round. I think it's a good overview of what people are doing, and in some ways, it's kind of a stake in the ground. The next 6 months to a year, I think we're gonna see an explosion of development. So it's pretty exciting to be in it.
Exciting
But
times.
yeah, for sure. But what do you see as the role of telehealth kind of in the growth of the business at Cerner going forward? Like what's the strategy now, and how do you see it, as part of the business?
Well, I certainly see, if I made an analogy to mobile 5 to 7 years ago, it was kind of a big deal to have, mobile applications and you can run on a smartphone. It's just an expectation and it's a mobile first mentality, I think,
Yeah.
today. I see telehealth in much the same way, and it's going to evolve very quickly. So not just video-based visits, but how do I digitally interact with, members of my care team as well as with the patient? And those will evolve. There'll be more automation, more technologies like you mentioned around ambient voice and others to go streamline and make these processes more efficient. And I think these capabilities will be core. For a long time, whether it's, American Telemedicine Association and others in the industry have been proponents of virtual health. We've always said, we'll be where we need to be when it's no longer virtual health. It's just part of delivery of healthcare. And I think, for some of us that have been around in the industry and in this segment of the industry for a long time, that may sound cliche and old at this point, but I think it's very true. I think that will start to be the future, is when we see that as just a core part of how services are delivered, and people are able to go interact with their care teams. And I also think there's going to be more high acuity type use cases, more services delivered in the home, and that will require a whole nother set and a next level of tool sets and capabilities around higher acuity cases.
It's interesting you say that. When I read your title, I was like, I wonder when he got that Vice President of Virtual Health, and will that title survive? You know what I mean?
I
It's
mean,
interesting.
if I do my job right in 5 years, it won't be relevant or needed anymore. We'll
Yeah.
move on to something else.
Be Vice President of Healthcare? No, I mean, virtual health should be dead, right? It should just be healthcare, and you choose the modality. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thanks so much, Andy, for taking time to share, kind of about Cerner, the approach to telehealth, and obviously the integration with Amwell and all that you offer. And thanks everyone for watching. If you want to check out the rest of the EHR telehealth series, you can find it out at healthcareittoday.com. I'm going to finish that again, okay? And then I'm going to cut it. I'll just do the full ending and chop it, however.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Andy, for sharing. I'll do it again. Thanks so much, Andy, for sharing. Appreciate your insights and perspectives. And thanks, everyone, for watching. If you want to find the rest of the EHR telehealth series, you can find it at healthcareittoday.com. Thanks, Andy.
It was a pleasure. Appreciate the opportunity.